a lot of options today. Today is the feast day of St. Anthony Zacharia and also St. Elizabeth of Portugal, great niece of St. Elizabeth of Hungary. Kind of had a little place in my heart because I served at St. Elizabeth of Hungary in Pleasant Hills. Now it has another name like every other church in the diocese, but nonetheless brought back memories. But today I thought, because they're both optional memorials, that we would celebrate this votive Mass for our nation on the anniversary of its independence, okay? Freedom, our freedoms. And we hear about freedoms today. First of all, about Jacob. I'll tell you what, this is one of those other things that kind of, I shake my head. He went to go to bed, go to sleep. So he takes a rock to use for a pillow. Those guys were tough. I worry about mine, having enough feathers in it. Actually, I don't use feather pillows, but nonetheless, that's another story. But the fact is that, where he laid his head to rest was on holy ground. We hear that. And so he decides to make that, give it a new name, Bethel. It would become kind of like the headquarters, like Judah in the south. Bethel would be kind of like the capital of the northern community, northern kingdom. And we know well the story of Jacob's ladder. We teach it to our kids, especially during Advent. Maybe you did it with your own, you parents, did it with your own children. Talking about Jacob's ladder, that there was and what was the point? There was a way to get to heaven. And so God's messengers, his angels, ascended and descended upon that stairway or that ladder. So it was possible for us to get to heaven someday. Of course, it was going to take more than a vision of a ladder, but rather it would take God giving us his only begotten Son, Jesus Christ, who would give us the freedom over sin and death. And that's what we hear about in the gospel today. Two people who had faith. Jairus, the synagogue official. In this gospel, we hear he's just a royal official. Doesn't even give him a name. And the fact that he comes to Jesus and already says to him, my daughter's dead. In the other gospel, it's like, she is gravely ill. Please come and touch her before she might die. In this gospel, she's already gone. What does Jesus say? She's not dead. In the Jewish religion and Jewish faith, a person had to be dead for 3 days before they were officially declared dead. And so, she had just died. And Jesus says, oh, she's not. She's just sleeping. And he goes and touches her hand. Of course, in this gospel, you don't get any words. But what does he say to her? Little girl, I bid you get up. Be raised. And immediately she gets up out of the bed, made well. Freedom from even death. That's what Jesus does for you and me, huh? That's the promise he makes us. And it makes it possible by his own suffering, death, and glorious resurrection. The woman who suffered 12 years with hemorrhages, because she bled, she was in Jewish law as well, had to be ostracized, separated from the community. She wasn't supposed to even be seen in public. But she comes, why? Because she believes, she trusts. She says to herself, if I but only touch the tassel on his cloak, I will be made well. She had faith. That's what he says to her. Courage, daughter, your faith has saved you. And on this anniversary of our independence, I know it's the day after, but we're recognizing it as a country on this 5th of July. That you too, you and I also thank God for the freedoms he's given us. To be able to choose him above all things. To trust in him. And to come here this morning to pray for our great nation. And it is a great nation. Do we have problems? Not to look too far to realize and recognize we do. But by God's grace, all things are possible. We can overcome those weaknesses, those injustices, the social unrest in our nation, it can be overcome. How? By our faith in God and in his Son who said, peace I leave you, my peace I give to you. He wasn't just talking to the apostles, but each and every one of us and all those in this nation. And so we thank God for the gift of faith that brings us here today to worship and to love God with all our hearts and minds, to serve him well in this life, and someday be able to take that ladder, Jacob's ladder, to heaven, in a spiritual sense, to be with him forever.